My fiance and I are getting married in October. My future mother-in-law is a plant enthusiast, and their entire property looks like something out of a garden magazine. Cobblestone paths, fountains, statues, shaped bushes, and some of the most beautiful plants and trees I've ever seen, including willow and cherry blossom trees. We're getting married in the middle of a meadow towards the center of their property, and it's going to be gorgeous. My brother Justin has been dating Sarah for 6 years, and they got engaged a few months ago. I'm not close with Sarah because they live across the state and only come down here for holidays and events. Sarah uses a prosthetic leg, and apparently lately it's been getting to be too much for her, so she's been using a wheelchair. He texted me asking if the property was wheelchair accessible, and I said I didn't know and would let him know what I found out. There aren't any stairs, but the property has different sections with grass, cobblestone, gravel, and dirt. And since I don't use a wheelchair, I don't know how well she can get around in terrain like that. We went over to my in-laws to discuss the ceremony and reception space and see how difficult it might be for Sarah. I texted my brother to let him know about the terrain. He asked if the reception was in the house, and I said no, we were having a tent set up. He asked if we were putting down flooring for that party tent, and I said no. We looked into it, but it was out of our budget, and everything will look nicer on the grass anyway. He asked if we would have one set up anyway, because the grass would be too hard for Sarah to wheel over, and I apologized and told him it was out of our budget by thousands. He told me that if we wouldn't do that, Sarah couldn't come, and we'd be excluding her. I said that it was unfortunate, and if that was the case, we'd miss her at our wedding. He called me ableist and discriminatory, and said that if we wouldn't accommodate her, then he wouldn't come to our wedding either. Not even an hour later, I got a text from my mom saying that I was being mean to my brother and Sarah, and that it wouldn't be a good look for me if I decided not to do such a simple thing. She told me that I could handle renting one of those tent patios since we didn't pay for a venue and DIY'd a lot of our wedding. I said I was sorry and gave my reasoning again. She told me that if we excluded Sarah, they'd pull their contribution to our wedding. I'm not sure how exactly since they paid for our dresses, and those were paid for weeks ago. I told her that if she and my brother wanted to foot the bill, then I'd be more than happy to speak to my mother-in-law about having one put down. She said no. She and Dad are retired, and Justin has his own wedding to pay for. I feel bad for excluding Sarah, but I'm not sure what else I can do. Am I the one in the wrong? To add information, Sarah has used a prosthetic since she's been with my brother, but this is the first and only time they've mentioned her being in a wheelchair. We sent out save-the-date cards with my mother-in-law's address as the venue about 8 months ago, and 2 months ago sent out formal invitations with more information regarding her property, parking, outdoors, length of walk to ceremony, etc. And I hadn't heard anything from my brother or Sarah besides a returned RSVP for yes. Almost forgot. The quotes we were given for something that we were sure wouldn't harm my mother-in-law's lawn were about $6,000 to $9,000 to rent for the evening. Our budget was $15,000, and we are already at the top end of it. Now for an update. The reason I didn't suggest or look into a different kind of chair or scooter was because I just figured that was something Sarah and Justin would have looked into themselves since they were the ones needing it. I figured since they jumped right to a $9,000 solution at my expense, that the other options wouldn't work for them, and they were bringing up the last available option. Also, my fiance's grandma is wheelchair-bound as well, but has been to my mother-in-law's house plenty of times, and it hasn't come up as an issue. And for everyone upset about us getting married on grass and that people will struggle with their heels, I mentioned in my post that in our invitations we had information about my mother-in-law's property. I'm sure people will dress accordingly considering they're aware of the venue. I'm not sure why people are upset about that. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Tell your mom she can take back the bridesmaid dresses, and you will tell your bridesmaids to wear what they want. In the US, brides do not generally pay for bridesmaid dresses. Your mom is an awful person for saying that you could handle the rental. Forget her. It is your money, and I would be very nervous about putting one on mother-in-law's property. What if mother-in-law's property gets damaged? Your brother needs to look into buying, renting, or borrowing an all-terrain wheelchair. They do make them. I think they cost about $1,000. Comment 2. Why can't she use crutches to get there? Or plan to try and come out one of the days to see if the wheelchair can even navigate it? My husband would honestly just try to piggyback me over so we wouldn't bother anyone else. Or politely decline an invite since it's not her day anyway. Your brother is being a jerk. It's not ableist or discriminatory to say you can't afford to shell out thousands for special flooring. And your parents are being rude trying to pull funds they already contributed. Not the idiot. Now, for the update. I'm back with another update on the wedding drama that's been going on in my life. It's just under a week since the last argument about the wedding venue, and let me tell you, things didn't exactly calm down after that. So Justin called me for an update on the accessibility situation, and I had to explain again how tricky it is to navigate the grounds. I went over the budget constraints, but of course, he expressed frustration and said he didn't want Sarah to feel excluded. Can't say I was surprised, but still not helpful in the budget department. Then, my mom decided to organize a family dinner to discuss the wedding plans. You can probably guess how that went. Everyone gathered at the family home, including Justin and Sarah, and let's just say the atmosphere was super tense. My mom brought up the need to accommodate Sarah, and Justin accused me of not caring about her needs. He was raising his voice during dinner, which really wasn't the place for that. My mom jumped in, trying to ease the situation, but it just made the argument worse. At one point, Sarah was so visibly upset that she left the table to collect herself in the living room. I went back to the dining table where the argument was still going on. My dad tried to lighten the mood by cracking some jokes, but they just didn't work. Honestly, it was one of those dinners where you could feel the awkwardness. The whole dinner ended abruptly, with Justin storming out and Sarah following him. Oh, and by the way, my mom was upset because she felt like she had to organize the dinner to address these issues. Yeah, the issues that her daughter and future son-in-law created in the first place. So a couple of days later, I got a text from Sarah asking to meet for coffee. We met at a quiet cafe, and she wanted to talk about the situation without any family interference. I really appreciated that because honestly, it gets exhausting with everyone else in the mix. Sarah expressed her concerns about feeling unwelcome and how that affected her relationship with Justin. I listened to her, and even though I could have argued back, I just explained my side. I let her know, again, that the budget constraints were real for us. Then we talked about some possible compromises, like bringing in portable ramps for the day. Sarah suggested reaching out to an accessibility consultant for ideas, which I thought was a fantastic idea. After the meeting, I called Justin to discuss what we talked about. He was initially resistant, but agreed to consider the portable ramps. Honestly, it felt like a small win. My mom found out about our coffee meeting and was upset that she wasn't included. She insisted that we should have all talked as a family instead of behind closed doors. To be fair, I get where she's coming from, but at the same time, she wasn't exactly creating a safe space for that conversation. She reluctantly agreed to a family meeting again to discuss the new ideas. So, we all gathered again, and this time, the mood was slightly lighter. I presented the idea of portable ramps, and there was a mixed reaction. Justin was more open to the idea after hearing Sarah's input, which was a relief. Then my mom suggested that we could allocate some of the wedding budget towards the ramps. Just when we thought things were settling, Justin mentioned needing a venue change. He said he found a more accessible venue that could fit everyone, and I was like, wow, here we go again. After some discussions, we decided to book the new venue, and everyone felt relieved. It's funny how things work out sometimes, though, because even with all the drama, the wedding plans shifted, but ultimately allowed for a more inclusive celebration. That's where we're at now. Edit. Some people asked about the budget situation for the wedding. My fiance and I are funding the wedding ourselves, and while we've set a budget, we really want to stick to it. My parents initially offered to help cover some costs, which is why they suggested the flooring rental, but we really can't go overboard. Others asked about the wedding date, and it's in early October, so we have a little time to sort everything out. Am I the idiot for refusing to be my sister's babysitter in ATM? My twin sister, Maya, has a 1-year-old son, Lucas. A little backstory. She had a horrible pregnancy right from the first trimester and had to quit her job since she was spending too much time out of the office. Her ex-boyfriend turned out to be a piece of work who claimed Maya had cheated on him and pinned the baby on him. And when my family insisted on taking a paternity test as soon as the baby was born, he agreed but went out for some milk before the due date. After Lucas was born, finances became too tricky with a newborn and Maya's postpartum complications. She asked if I could let her stay with me temporarily so she didn't have to pay rent, and I agreed. I have an extra room in my house, which I inherited from my grandma, so I don't have to worry about rent either. Long story short, it's been tough living with a baby whose mother needs so much more help than one person can provide. Our parents live too far to be of any help. Anyway, I didn't mind waking up half the time to give Lucas his bottle or staying with him when she needed some time to herself. I also paid for everything baby-related, hospital bills for both her and my nephew, food, clothes, and diapers, you name it. But now that both Maya and my nephew are stable enough that she resumed working, she started pushing for more. She expected me to keep paying for everything. But I told her it's harder now that I'm not putting in as many hours, and I get paid per hour. Still, she buys nothing, and I end up paying anyway. She also thinks it doesn't make sense to pay for daycare when I'm home most of the day. I ended up paying for it myself when she wouldn't. I think it's important to add that I refused to adopt Lucas. Everyone has always known I will adopt a child or more in the future, but when Maya asked, I didn't think she would be willing to stay in her biological son's life as an aunt, and I don't think the confusion would do anyone any good. So on Monday, she asked me to take Lucas to his hospital appointment, and I said no. I told her to take a day off for that because my job hasn't been doing well lately, as I've been spending too much time taking care of Lucas. She pointed out how this is my nephew, and if I adopt kids, I will need to make sacrifices too, to which I said, I will make them when the time comes, but I'm not Lucas's dad. Although I'm happy to help where I can, I shouldn't be expected to change my life for him. Maya took a day off, but since the appointment, she hasn't spoken to me except for a yes-no mumble when I talk to her, and she's been keeping Lucas in her room when he's not at daycare. I love the little guy with all my heart, and I'm wondering if maybe I took things too far. Am I the antagonist? To add, because I can't reply to all the comments, I may have caused some gender confusion with my phrasing, but I am female. We're identical twins. I used the exact words, I'm not his dad in our argument, despite my gender, so that's what I wrote in the post. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. I have sadly been in your position as a sister, and I must say, it won't end well. You will always be reminded that it's not your kid when it's convenient for them. In my opinion, she should live on her own with her child. You can then do normal aunt duties and not second parent duties. I hope this helps. If it doesn't, disregard. Good luck. Comment 2. Not the idiot. If you're in the United States and your sister hadn't pursued a paternity test and child support through the legal system, then you should make that a requirement for her continued housing. Not getting the benefits to which her child is legally entitled is doing her child a disservice. It's also an excuse to continue taking advantage of you. Now, for the update. Maya and I have barely spoken since the argument. It's all been like super awkward small talk and just the bare essentials. She's been keeping Lucas in her room more often, which is weird because we used to hang out in the living room and kitchen. Now it feels like I have to ask permission to see my own nephew. I miss the times when we used to just chill and watch TV, or when she'd let me hold him whenever I wanted. I get that she's upset, but come on. It's not like I'm the one who caused this rift between us. So one evening, I decided to cook dinner for both of us, hoping it might help ease the awkwardness. I figured, good food and good company could help. While I was cooking, I found a receipt for a really expensive baby stroller in Maya's wallet, like it was a big online purchase. My first thought was, why the heck would she spend that much on a stroller when we're struggling financially? I mean, I get that Lucas deserves nice stuff, but we were literally just talking about how we needed to cut back on expenses. Maya came home just as I was looking at the receipt, and she immediately grabbed it from me. She looked super defensive about it, too. I asked her why she bought such an expensive stroller, and she said it was on sale and that the old one was breaking. I raised an eyebrow, though, because we could have easily discussed needing new stuff instead of making these big impulse buys. There was this tense silence that filled the room, and Maya just brushed off my concerns, insisting she'd handle her own finances. I wanted to keep pushing, but I just didn't have the energy. I could tell she didn't want to talk about it, and I didn't want to make things worse. The next day, Maya's boss invited us both to a company picnic. She hoped it might lighten the mood between us, I guess. At the picnic, Maya seemed super distracted. She spent a lot of time away from me and Lucas, which was kind of a bummer because I wanted us to be together. Whenever I tried to talk to her, she'd just give me these short, clipped answers. One of her colleagues casually mentioned how much she admired Maya for being a single mom, and I could see Maya's eyes light up. I think she liked the attention and the validation. At the end of the day, she suddenly announced that she was going out with friends, leaving me to care for Lucas all alone. I was kind of annoyed because I felt like she was just checking out of her responsibilities. I had to juggle caring for Lucas while cleaning up after the picnic, which was no small feat. I'm not complaining, though. I love spending time with him, even though I was super tired by the end of the day. It just would have been nice if Maya had offered to help, or even just asked me if I minded. A few days later, Maya came home late, stumbling slightly and smelling like alcohol. It was obvious she'd been out drinking. I confronted her about her late nights and her lack of communication, but it led to another argument. She accused me of trying to control her life, saying she deserves to have fun. I responded that being a parent comes with responsibilities, not just all the fun times. She just stormed out of the room, and I felt like we were back at square one. The next weekend, we had a family gathering for a birthday party for our grandmother. I was looking forward to seeing everyone, but the tension between Maya and me just made everything feel so much more awkward. During the party, Maya insisted on showing off Lucas to all the family members, which was fine, but she wouldn't let me hold him. I tried to, but she just kept pulling him away. I overheard some family members discussing Maya's situation, with a few expressing concern. I felt a little better knowing that some people were worried, but I also felt bad for Maya. At one point, she pulled me aside and asked me to stop eavesdropping on her private conversations. She dismissed my concerns, saying she was fine and could handle everything on her own. I wanted to argue, but I knew it wouldn't get us anywhere. A few days later, I got a text from Maya's boss, asking if we could meet to discuss Maya's performance at work. I was confused, but agreed, wondering if something was wrong at her job. During the meeting, her boss revealed that Maya had been missing work frequently and might be struggling. It made sense, honestly, why she'd been so distracted and distant. When I finally confronted Maya about her work issues, she brushed it off, insisting she was doing okay. I mentioned her boss's concerns, which made her angry. She accused me of trying to sabotage her, which was just ridiculous. The argument escalated, and she threw the receipt for the expensive stroller in my face, demanding respect. She suggested we take a break from living together to figure things out, and I was just stunned. I didn't even know what to say. Edit. After the argument, we both took a few days to cool off. Maya then suggested she move into her old apartment temporarily. She assured me she could handle everything on her own, but I still worry. Am I the idiot for exposing my husband's financial lies at a family dinner and taking our daughter's money? I, a 26-year-old female, and my husband, a 32-year-old male, had a baby in July of 2023. We had announced a little before Christmas of 2022 that we were expecting, and our families were ecstatic at the news. I have always wanted to be a mom since I was a small child. My father-in-law was so ecstatic at the news that he gifted us $4,000 for Christmas to help with medical bills and for the baby. My father-in-law is a half-owner of a multi-state, multi-million-dollar business, of which my husband is slated to take over with his sister sometime next year. In our state, it is a requirement to have a social security number prior to opening a bank account, which my daughter in utero did not have. Therefore, it was agreed to deposit the money in our joint account until after our daughter was born. I don't monitor this joint account because it's at my husband's bank, not mine. To pay for medical costs associated with her birth, I used my health savings account, covering the full amount by myself. I also created her a bank account through my bank, which my husband was supposed to be a trustee on, but he failed to sign the paperwork in time, so my dad was designated instead. Today, while driving home from an event, I asked about the $4,000, considering our daughter is a year old, and asked for permission to withdraw the funds and transfer it into our daughter's legitimate account. My husband started claiming that I already used the money for medical bills and that I cashed it into my personal account. I told him that I did not do that and showed him my account from that time period. He said that if it was in the joint account, it is gone and that he used it towards hunting land, which I didn't give the okay to spend that money on. He then called me ridiculous for even bringing it up, and that our baby isn't entitled to that money as it was for medical expenses and care of her, which he barely pays anything towards. I pay 75% of daycare costs and all of the grocery bills, including formula and milk, and the baby is covered under my health care plan, as his health plan is awful from his family's business. We split our mortgage 50-50, but I was the one who paid for the entire down payment. The whole situation was brought up when it did, as I am beginning to struggle to make ends meet and have been unable to transfer money every paycheck to our daughter's account. I've been putting $150 away each paycheck as I want to be able to help her get a car or go to college if she so chooses. I explained this, and my husband accused me of blowing through the money again and refuses to check. I told him that I wasn't asking. I was telling him that he needs to check and that he needed to figure out where the money went. Am I the jerk? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, no title account. If it's a joint account, go into it yourself and find out where the money went. If he used the money to buy land, then make sure your name is on the deed. Make a will naming your daughter only as the beneficiary, with her father as overseer of the trust in case she is not 18. Your husband has already proven that he cannot be trusted with your daughter's money. Lastly, if he refuses to put money into your daughter's account, tell your father-in-law that your husband refuses to turn the money over to your daughter. Comment 2. No title account at all, but your husband is gaslighting you and taking advantage of you financially. It sounds like your daughter is only your daughter. It doesn't sound like he is really contributing much compared to you and is spending your joint money on himself without asking you, etc. He is trying to make you think that you already spent that money instead of admitting that he took it. Now for the update. My husband is stealing from our daughter, and I'm done. A couple weeks passed since the last argument about the $4,000. Things between me and Mike were just getting worse. He was cold, and whenever I tried to talk to him, he would just brush me off. I felt so alone. We went to a family barbecue at Mike's sister Sarah's house, and I was hoping that being with everyone would help us. Nope. I tried talking to him when we got there, but he just glared at me. It felt like everyone noticed, but no one said anything. It was awkward. At one point, Mike got a text and just left. I mean, not just to the backyard or something. He walked down the street. He was gone for a long time. When he came back, he was acting really different. His tone was different, and he was super guarded. Sarah noticed and asked if everything was okay, and he just laughed it off. It was so weird. I sat near the kitchen and heard bits of Mike's conversation with his brother, David. He sounded worried about something. Later that night, his phone kept buzzing, and he silenced it right away. I knew something was going on, but he wouldn't tell me. A few days later, I was cleaning up and found a bank statement from the joint account. There were these withdrawals that Mike said were for family expenses. It was so much money, and I asked him about it. He raised his voice and accused me of not trusting him. During all this, our daughter Lily started to notice. She would look between us when we got into it, and it broke my heart. I just wanted to keep her safe and happy. I decided to talk to David at a family dinner. I asked him about Mike's spending habits casually, and he hesitated before saying something about a new hunting lease. I was so mad. I went home and Googled it, and it was way more expensive than what Mike had said. I needed proof, so I started keeping track of the joint account and everything we spent. One day, Mike left his laptop open, and I took the chance to look. I found emails about the hunting lease, and he was talking about money with a friend. The shocking part was that he ignored the family funds. They were in there for our daughter, and he just didn't care. I printed the emails and decided to confront him during a family dinner at my parents' house. I was so nervous. When I showed everyone the emails, they looked shocked. Mike got so mad and said I had no right to go through his things. I told everyone he was misusing our daughter's money for personal gain. I felt so embarrassed and hurt. I couldn't believe he would do this to us. I knew I had to take action. I decided to withdraw my savings from the joint account to secure Lily's future. I opened a separate account in her name and transferred the money right away. Mike found out and exploded. He threatened to take me to court over the money. It was a standoff, and neither of us would back down. That night, I took Lily and left for my parents' house. The next day, Mike sent me a ton of angry texts. I just ignored them because I knew he was just trying to manipulate me. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.